CNN has learned that the House and Senate Intelligence Committees want Michael Cohen to come back to testify before Congress before he goes to prison. And he's not the only person who has spoken with Mueller's investigators who could be called back to speak to lawmakers. This all comes as federal prosecutors, they struck a surprise immunity deal with the publisher of the National Enquirer over hush money payments to silence accusers of Donald Trump before the 2016 election. I want to bring Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell. He is a member of both the House Committee and the Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. Michael Cohen yesterday, thank you, was sentenced to 3 years in prison. It was nine felony counts. None of them, though, to be clear, and they included financial crimes, they included campaign finance violations. By my reading, none of them had any connection to Russian collusion. Did they?
They did. One of them was for lying about questions surrounding Russia collusion. And if you lie and you keep prosecutors from being able to find out the truth, you can't then say, oh, well, you didn't find anything about Russia collusion. I mean, you only lie because you have a consciousness of guilt, and I think we learned a lot more, and the Mueller team knows a lot more now about what the president knew at the time about Russia's intent on the business side and political side to help him.
So if you get Michael Cohen back, which Michael Cohen says he will, Michael Cohen says he will cooperate, and you will soon be in the majority, so the House Intelligence Committee can certainly do it now. What will you ask him?
Well, I expect a scene. I wasn't alive in June 1973, but I know the history of John Dean coming before Congress. He was described as the person who knew during Watergate where everyone and everything went. And I think Michael Cohen, as someone who lived in Trump's three worlds, personal, political, and financial, he knows where all the bodies are buried. And so I think a come clean moment for the American people to understand what candidate Trump knew about Russia's intentions to do business with him during the primary and the general election, what candidate Trump knew about Russia's offers to help him with the dirt that they were offering, and whether the candidate knew about it, and then also whether the candidate was instructing Michael Cohen to lie and cover up about what they were doing at the time. I think that would all be instructive for the American people.
Do you have any proof at this point that Michael Cohen was instructed to lie?
No, but we have heard from his attorney that there's much more to tell, and he wants to tell it once the Mueller investigation's over.
By the way, I do want to note that you said you weren't born in 1973. I took that as a comment that I am old, so you will now be treated as a hostile witness. Congressman Swalwell, Adam Schiff, who will be the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, he thinks now, or he's raised the possibility that we all need to reassess whether a sitting president can be indicted. This is DOJ guidelines suggesting that a sitting president cannot be indicted. You're a lawyer. Do you think that that is something that should be reexamined?
Well, I believe that a president can be indicted constitutionally. Now, what the DOJ does, that's their own guidelines. But I don't think DOJ guidelines should allow a president to run out the clock by, being reelected. And right now, as I understand the statute of limitations, if Donald Trump is reelected, he will escape indictment. So I think Congress could pass laws that say any person, if they're not being indicted because of a DOJ policy, that you could pause the statute of limitations. But, John, I think the larger issue here is, you may have a president who may not only be compromised by the Russians and the Saudis financially, but he may be acting erratically because he has possible criminal exposure waiting for him when he gets out of office. And I don't think you want any president in that position.
So you, again, are part of the incoming majority. Where do you put these investigations? Where would you rank them in terms of your priorities starting January 2nd?
Well, my priorities are to collaborate on infrastructure, the DREAM Act, reducing gun violence, and reducing the cost of prescription drugs. We have an oversight responsibility, and I think shining light where there are offenses and abuses, we now can put a balance of power on that. So, John, that means filling in the gaps with what we know about Russia, not because we're prosecutors, but because there's a 2020 presidential election coming, and Russia is still intent, as General Mattis said last week, on undermining our democracy. Also getting the president's tax returns, not because we're curious or, palace intrigue, but because we want to know if his financial interests are driving policies abroad and at home that affect the American people. So we should only do things if the president's actions are affecting people in their everyday lives, not, just to get a pound of flesh. And I don't think you're going to see that.
You brought up 2020. You have said that you are considering a run for the Democratic nomination. You told Casey Hunt you do see a path. What path for you,
Well,
Congressman?
I'll be in New Hampshire on Friday. John, you should come with me, and you'll see, I think, the same path, which is that Americans want to go big, do good, and be free. And I think the only way to do that is to embrace new ideas, new energy, and new leadership, just as we did by electing 27 new members of Congress in their 40s and under in this last election. And so
new ideas and new leadership. There are those who will point out it's ironic that you're talking about new ideas and new leadership, given that Nancy Pelosi just yesterday basically secured her position to be the next Speaker of the House. And the House Democratic leadership will be Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn. Is that new ideas and new leadership?
Well, I think if you listen to the statement that she put out yesterday, she said that she sees her speakership as a bridge to the next generation of leadership. And I think that bridge will be completed when we elect a new president in 2020. And my prediction, John, whoever Democrats nominate, whoever beats Donald Trump, is going to be a page forward for us and not a page backward.
I want to read you something that Cher said about you. Cher says, who's a Democrat and supported Hillary Clinton in the last election, I would love to see Biden be nominated with someone young, Kamala Harris, or I can't remember what Swalwell's first name is.
We don't need her to remember the first name. She got the last name, John. That's the hard part.
All right. Congressman Eric Swalwell, thank you for being with us. Appreciate your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks, John.
Erica?
Scandal on campus. We'll look at why an Ivy League university has fired 3 professors. That's next.
Plus, new revelations about the Titanic, the Cold War secret behind the shipwreck's discovery. Next.